that. And today I want to talk about sacrifice, because sacrifice is often a really misunderstood element in the road to your success. Now, one of the things that I love to talk about is success. And it's such an overused word because everyone will be like, look, it depends on your definition, and to an extent that's true. And everybody's saying, I can help you become successful, just buy my shit, right? Read this book, do that. In fact, the way that you're going to be the most successful in your life, first of all, you've got to construct your own parameters around it. That's a very important element for you to understand. What does it actually mean for you personally? So in a way it's defined, but you also need to have parameters, like ways you can gauge and measure if you're on track or off track, like an internal compass, if you will. Now, a part of that journey, if you will, is that when you're going forward in this pursuit of success, so to speak, because when people say life is a journey, I don't like that, because a journey means that you arrive somewhere. That's the purpose of a journey, right? Like we decide, set out our course, get our compass out or GPS, we say, we're gonna go this direction. However, the purpose of the journey is to get to that destination. Yes, you enjoy it along the way, which is sort of the idea of saying that, but you arrive. Now, there is no arrival. You tell me when you actually arrive, because you might feel a little bit robbed, right? Like sometimes I think there's the universal joke where we start looking at our life and going, I'm 25, I thought I would be different by now. I thought I would be somewhere else in my life. It feels strange. I don't feel any more accomplished. Maybe I don't feel further ahead. Maybe I feel more backward. Or I'm 30 or 40 years old and I should be further along in my career. Perhaps I'm making the wrong moves and I need to do something different. Or you might be in your 50s and going, I just wasted my entire life. Oh my God, what am I doing? That's one of the reasons why I don't think life is a journey. I think we have to understand is that if you believe or buy into that, then you also buy into the idea that you go to school, you go to university, you get an education, then you ultimately retire. Retire from what? We know that if you retire, within a few years, statistically, you die. Within 18 months, you're out. Because why? Life is beyond just that pursuit, right? Beyond that journey. It's who you become in the process. It's turning your life into a masterpiece. It's developing a way of doing life on your own terms that creates inner joy, inner meaning, true meaning. I mean, not just meaning from buying stuff and having a nice house and having a nice car and having those luxuries of life, which I believe you should have, which make you comfortable. It's doing something that has a lot more purpose than the pain that you have to go through in the struggle, okay? And so part of becoming successful in your life, the adversities that you have to go through are there to strengthen you, but to get to develop yourself to that next stage or that next point, you actually have to sacrifice who you are in the now. You have to sacrifice the identity that you currently have of yourself in the moment. And so a classic example of this in my own life is becoming a dad. It's like one of the most amazing, life-changing, and incredible experiences that I've ever gone through. The birth of my little girl, like, people say it changes you. My God, did I just feel the impact, but it was so natural, right? Like it just happened. And I didn't have to set a goal. I didn't have to write it out. I didn't have to make it an affirmation. I was different. And it puzzled me. So here I am, I've got my phone, I'm right up in the hospital going, why do you change as a man after your baby's born? Turns out there's very little research actually done on this, but there was one article I found. So I like to spend my time. And the brain actually changes if you're a man. The moment you look at your baby, parts of your brain shut off, never to be reactivated again. That's probably like the clubbing side of your brain, right? Like, because I've got no interest in going out to clubs now. And that's so weird for me, because my old identity, I used to host parties, go out. I used to bring DJs up from interstate, put on these events. And I was like, I'm never going to stop doing this. But I couldn't imagine anything worse now, like in that sense. So that identity died. But what happens, parts of your brain shut off, and then new parts are activated. And part of this is a survival tactic. So when you see your child for the first time, you don't run away and go to the next village and procreate with the next woman. So you love that child so much that you will sacrifice your life for that infant, and you will protect the mother no matter what. I'm like, damn, that's how I feel. Like it felt so primal. Like I was like, oh man, don't you get near my baby. Like Alison was like, you were scary. Your vibe was just next level. And I said, that's so interesting, because it took me a couple of months of just reading and researching and looking into psychology and thinking, like, why am I so different? I feel so different. And if you're a dad, can you relate to me on this? Now, even if you're a dad, you'll be able to relate to this part of what I'm talking about. The old identity, this is what I found, the old identity of who I was, just like a phoenix rising from the ashes, had died and been rebirthed. And it happened naturally as a consequence of a birth. And there was also a biological thing as well. So part of what we have to understand about change in our life for getting what we want and creating what we want is also understanding that there are biological changes that will happen as you get older. How you feel when you're 20 is not how you're going to feel when you're 30. How you feel when you're 30 is not how you're going to feel when you're 40. So I'm 35 at the moment, and I know I feel different. I remember when I was 16, the hormones running through me, what I used to think about myself. Oh my God, like I was a mess, you know, like, and I'm sure you were too. Like, it's just crazy what goes on biologically, but I wasn't like that when I was 21. I'm definitely different when I was 25 and 28 and 30. I've got an article on Quora you should read that's had a fair amount of views and a lot of traction on how to live your best life and set your life up from your 20s to your 30s. If you're interested, check it out. But what's interesting is that you've got to give up the old identity. Who you think you are, in the sense of, if you're 40 years old and you're emotionally stunted, you're not a 16-year-old, you might need some psychological development and mental health training if you can't deal with your emotions, because you're in a different stage of your life and you should be differently thinking and you should be looking at life through a different lens. There's a lot of things that happen at that age that won't happen when you're 25. This is important to understand. But when you're a success seeker, right, and I consider you a seeker, I consider anyone who's out there in business, entrepreneurship, a writer, a creative, a dancer, a musician, you're somebody who doesn't fit the current mold, right? Like, you want to do something that is outstandingly different. And so what has to happen for you particularly is that when you started your journey, you were one person, but who you are today is a different person. Who you're going to be tomorrow and the next year is going to be different. Now, that's an identity change, but you're not your identity, right? So this will be a lesson for another time. You're not your identity. So you're not really a musician. That's just an identity you have. You're not just a dad. That's just an identity. But these identities are important for us and for our ego, and they're important for us to go forward in life confidently or maybe unconfidently. But what I'm asking for you to do today is realize that the sacrifice that you must make for the success that you are seeking to have has to be letting go of who you think you were to who you should be and who you are, who you really, really are. Who are you? Where are you going? Who is the authentic self underneath? Because our confusion comes when we have an identity crisis, so to speak, where you think you're this person over here, deep down you know you're not, and therefore conflict arises within yourself, and you'll have parts of you pulling you off track. And so I believe for great sacrifice in your life to occur, it means that you're willing to give up an old identity to rebirth a new one, a brighter one, a more magnificent one, and a more powerful one. And who that is and what that looks like is entirely up to you. You get to carve that out, just like an architect with a blank piece of paper can put his dream in words or painting. That's exactly what you get to do. It's like Van Gogh said, I dream my painting and then I paint my dream. It's exactly what we do with our own self-image and ourself. So sacrifice is going to be a necessary part of it. But today we're just talking about the identity sacrifice, not necessarily the financial one, the resource one, the time one that you need to make. This one is going to be a very deep personal one. You may need to quit your job because, you know what? Hey, I thought I was a teacher. This is not my skill set. This is not where I'm at. This is not the identity that I fell in love with. It's not who I am. I am actually this. Or you may need to go, you know what? Corporate world is not for me. I have a message on my heart. I need to go out there and deliver it. I'm going to go do that via this. Let's go. Your identity has to change because the first thing that's going to happen is people are going to come up to you and say, who do you think you are? Or why are you doing that? Or God, that's so different to anything you've done before. Who do you think you are doing that? It's like, listen, man, I wasn't born this, and when I was 20, I wasn't this. I was becoming this now. In the next 10 years, I actually want to become that. And this show is an example of you watching my unfoldment in a different identity. You know, I didn't grow up becoming a professional dancer and becoming a speaker and leading people in seminars and doing online courses and running my own business. I was a blank canvas at birth, predisposed with some talents and abilities just like you, but I had to cultivate them. And for them to be cultivated and planted in the right garden to sort of flourish, well, the sacrifice had to be made. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Be willing to give up the past, be willing to give up who you think you are today for the person that you can be tomorrow. This is Vaughan. I want to thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next episode on the Daily Vibe. This is where I should have some like music that like pumps out. I'm gonna try it anyway. Like, this is awesome. One-man band. Here we go. Audio. Let's do it. Boom. Oh yeah. Thank you.